Good morning, students. Today we start off with the next chapter 4.2 Luncheon. The meaning of the word luncheon is a formal lunch. Before we begin with the chapter, let us go to the warming up session. Talk with your partner and discuss the following questions. Have you ever been invited for a lunch to any hotel by your friend? Yes, definitely. You would have been invited. All of us have been invited at one point of time uh, for lunch. What was the occasion? The occasion can be a birthday, a wedding anniversary, a religious function, or someone's housewarming, or a New Year party, or it could be a family get together. The occasion could be anything. Did you enjoy the lunch? Why? Definitely, you would enjoy the lunch because food generally served at parties or at the hotels, they are delicious, and moreover, when you enjoy the company of the people of your near and dear ones, then definitely you enjoy lunch. Okay. Let us discuss in pairs. People with foibles are often not conscious of them. Do you agree or disagree? Why? Now, this word foible stands for strange habit or weaknesses that people have कुछ एक उनमें कमजोरी होती है उसको हम बोलते हैं foible. Now, they are themselves not aware of their weakness. Sometimes it could be like someone keeps chewing something with a mouth open. Some people have the habit of blaming or criticizing others always. Some of them have the habit of praising themselves always. Okay, so there are a few characteristic weaknesses, but the people who suffer, who have these foibles, they are not themselves aware of it. Okay, so in this particular, why is this particular word being mentioned here? The one of the characters in the story has a foible, and when we do the story, after we finish off with the story, we will come back to this particular word to find out what is the foible that the a particular lady, that is one of the main characters in the story, had, and how she was actually not aware of her weakness. Let us continue. Let's now go to the story, and let's start off with the lesson. The luncheon. Luncheon, I told you, is a formal lunch. A little description about the writer. William Somerset Maugham, 1874 to 1965, was a distinguished British playwright, novelist, and short story writer. He was among the most popular writers of his era and reputedly the highest paid author during the 1930s. His work is characterized by a clear, unadorned style, unadorned plain, that which doesn't have any much decoration, unadorned plain style, cosmopolitan settings, and a shrewd understanding of human behavior. He has a sharp understanding of human nature. Okay. A most delightfully humorous narrative, The Luncheon, is a slice of life story about Mogham's lunch date proposed to him by a woman whom he hopes is a supporter of his art. So the lesson describes how a particular lady was taken for lunch by the author on a Thursday to a very famous restaurant in Paris, and this particular lady had the habit of manipulating, and she herself invited herself to a lunch. And what kind of a meeting was this, and what happened to the writer? How was his luncheon date? That is what he describes in this particular chapter. Let us read. I caught sight of her at a play and answered to her call. I went over during the interval and sat down beside her. I caught sight of her. I stands for the narrator. The narrator noticed or happened to see a lady at a play, and in answer to her call, that is, she called out to him, and he went over during the interval or the gap or the pause at a play. When there was an intermission session, at that time she called out to him, and he went over and sat down beside her. It was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I hardly think I would have recognized her. She addressed me brightly, intelligently here. Okay. So the author met her at a play and she called out to him. It was the interval time, and it was 20 years. It was the long gap of 20 years had passed, and the author had almost forgotten who she was. He was not able to recollect who that lady was. But someone mentioned her name, and that's how he recognized her. Well, it's many years since we first met. How time does fly. We are none of us getting any younger. So it is 20 years now, and we were younger when we met. Do you remember the first time I saw you? You asked me to luncheon. Do you remember 20 years ago when I first saw you? You invited me to have lunch. Did I remember? Now, till here, it is the present. That is the author meeting the lady at the play and was not able to recognize or recollect who she was. But someone mentioned her name, and he then understood who she was and how he had met her 20 years ago and had taken her for a lunch date. Okay, and from this sentence, that is the next paragraph onward, starts the flashback. What exactly had happened 20 years ago, and what was that incident? Who this lady was, and how the author was associated with her. Okay. It was 20 years ago, and I was living in Paris. I had a tiny apartment. I was earning barely enough money. Tiny, very small, apartment, a flat. He was living in Paris. The incident goes back. From here, it is flashback. Okay, till the almost the second last sentence of this particular chapter. The first paragraph is the present. Now, from this part starts a flashback. 20 years ago, the writer was living in Paris in a small apartment, and he was hardly earning, barely, hardly, okay, just earning enough money in order to survive. She had read a book of mine. This line tells us that the author was by profession a writer. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. I answered thanking her, and presently I received from her another letter saying that she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. Okay, so she had written a letter praising the writer for his work, and she just was passing through Paris and wanted to have an informal chat as an informal talk with the writer. But her time was limited, and the only free moment she had was on the following Thursday, and would I give her a little luncheon at Foyo, it's a French word, afterwards. Foyo is a restaurant, and it was so far beyond my means that I had never ever thought of going there. So, 20 years ago, when the writer had just started writing, he was hardly earning any money. This particular lady had read a book that was written by him and had praised him. And the writer was flattered by the compliments that she paid him. And किसी ने उसके बारे में उसको प्रेस किया या उसके बारे में बढ़ा चढ़ाकर कुछ लिख दिया और उसने ये भी कहा कि आई एम जस्ट पासिंग थ्रू दैट वे, मैं वहां से गुजर रही हूँ तो फिर आई वुड लाइक टू कम एंड मीट यू. and I am free only on Thursdays in the afternoon. And if you don't mind, we can have a little luncheon at Foible. This particular restaurant was meant for only the few rich. And so the writer says that it was so far beyond my means, I would not be able to afford, okay, to have a lunch at that particular place. I had never even thought of going there. I had 80 francs. Franc is a currency, unit currency of France. Okay. So I had 80 francs to last me the rest of the month. And a modest luncheon should not cost more than 15. So he started calculating mentally that I had 80 francs. So even if I manage to take that particular lady for a modest, that is a very simple lunch, it should not cost me more than 15 francs. If I cut out coffee, if I stop drinking, stop drinking coffee for the next 2 weeks, I could manage well enough. So the author was a person who hardly had, just had barely was earning some money, and that was sufficient only for his survival. He could lead a very simple lifestyle. But the very fact that this particular lady had praised him, written a letter to him, and was eager to meet him, made him, and that flattery and the compliment that she had paid, made him a little, anxious of not declining her invitation. And he decided that after calculation that hardly it would cost him some 15 francs, and he had 80 francs with him. So if he manages to economize by by not drinking coffee for the next 2 weeks, he could manage well enough. I answered that I would meet my friend at Foyo on Thursday at 12:30. He had never seen her, so he decided an appointment was fixed that I would meet you at the restaurant at 12:30. She was in appearance imposing rather than attractive. Imposing, grand, impressive in appearance rather than attractive, and she gave me the impression of having more teeth, white and large and even, than were necessary for any practical purpose. So, unnecessarily, she kept on smiling, trying to be really very polite, and the author was not so much um attracted, or rather he didn't find her very impressive, okay, because he thought that she was trying to be more grand and impressive in appearance than she actually was. Coming to the comprehension questions that you could be asked here in this particular passage, you can have something like true or false questions here, children. Let us discuss a few questions. The author recognized the lady immediately. Did he recognize the lady immediately? No. When you read it, you find out that if someone had not mentioned her name, he would have hardly recognized her. So false. The author was living in Paris 20 years ago. Yes, that is true. The She had invited the author for a grand lunch. Did she invite the author? No. She just requested that they could meet there. Okay. So that is false. It is the author wanted to have a grand lunch at Foyo. Wrong. She wanted to have it, so she invited him. Okay. So she had complimented. She had read the book of the author and had written to him about it. True. So here you have 4 true or false questions. And once you read and understand the conversation, you will be able to answer the true or false questions. Again, since it's a conversation, you can have questions related to who said to whom. So the narrator, or you can write the author, and the lady can be mentioned as the guest. Okay. Do you remember the first time I saw you? Okay. It's the lady guest asking the author. You asked me to luncheon. Again, the lady guest is talking to the author. Okay. Now, there can be some other small questions related to vocabulary, friendly chat. Friendly talk is chat. What is the profession of the narrator? The narrator is a writer by profession. And then you have, when was the lady free? The lady was free only on Thursday in the afternoon. Another question that you can have here is, why could the writer not refuse the lady's offer? The writer was flattered by the compliment that she paid him, and therefore he could not refuse, because he had just started writing, and she had written to him, and she had praised him and complimented him for his writing, and therefore he wanted to hear. Maybe he felt that he wanted someone to praise him, and therefore he couldn't refuse. And maybe he thought that she was a great supporter of his art, and therefore he decided to take her for a modest luncheon. The first paragraph is the present time, and then from the second paragraph you have the entire story which goes to the flashback. Okay, so then you have small questions where you have the name the following. Um the author's profession, he was a writer. The day fixed for the luncheon is Thursday, and the place where they decided to meet, was at Foyo restaurant at Paris. Then you have the total amount of money that the writer had was 80 francs, and the drink that the author decided to cut off for the next 2 weeks to manage his finances was coffee. Okay, and the time of the luncheon, 12:30. Okay, then again you have in the last paragraph where we talk about the appearance of that particular lady. How was the lady? The lady seemed to have a very good memory. Then she was imposing rather than attractive. Then you can say that she was, as we continue, we come to know that she was very talkative. Okay. 152, we are continuing. She was talkative, but since she seemed to want to talk about me, I was prepared to be an attentive listener. So the writer was desperately wanting maybe to have a word with someone who would praise him a little bit, to motivate him, to inspire him. So he wanted to be an attentive listener. Attentive here is an adjective. Attentive listener. I was startled when the menu was bought. So both of them meet at the restaurant, and at on Thursday at 12:30. Name of the restaurant, Foyo. And when the menu card was bought, the writer was startled, shocked. For the prices were a great deal higher than I had thought. But she reassured me. Okay, menu card देख के 1 मिनट के लिए चकरा गया राइटर, बिकॉज हर डिश जो था वो इतना उसके इट वॉज बियॉन्ड हिज मीन्स, इतना वो एक्सपेंसिव था, तो वो कभी उसे एफोर्ड नहीं कर पाएगा. सो ही वॉज लिटिल शॉक्ड व्हाट टू डू नाउ, बट शी रीएश्योर्ड हिम. Okay, she assured him that by saying, what are the words that she said? I never eat anything for luncheon, she said. Oh, don't say that, I answered generously. I never eat more than one thing. I think people eat far too much nowadays. A little fish, perhaps. I wonder if they have any salmon. Salmon is a kind of fish. And so she reassured the author, saying that मैं तो एक चीज से ज्यादा नहीं खाती हूँ, मैं इतना ज्यादा कुछ नहीं खाती हूँ लंच के. Okay, So here there is an irony, okay, because there is a lot of contrast in what the woman says. I never eat anything for lunch. Here there's an irony. उन्होंने उसने कुछ कहा और totally contrast, उसका जो behavior था वो totally contrast था. It was totally opposite to what she actually said. Because the writer could not afford much, and he was startled by the cost of the different items that were there on the menu. But after making the writer believe that she wasn't going to eat anything much, this particular lady friend of his ordered all the expensive dishes available on the menu, one after the other. कहा क्या? उसने कहा I never eat anything for lunch. उसके बाद कहा I never eat more than one thing. Okay? But once she started eating, she started ordering every expensive dish that was there at the restaurant, much to the shock of the writer. And when the author just ordered for some mutton chop, she advised him that he should not have a heavy meal, and she goes on ordering the dishes one after the other. So there is an irony here. What she said and what she did was totally opposite. Here you have, so what is the first thing that she orders? A little fish, perhaps. I wonder if they have any salmon. So salmon is a kind of fish. Well, it was early in the year for salmon, and it was not on the menu. The very first dish that she ordered was something that was not there on the menu card. But I asked the waiter. So the writer did not want to disappoint her, because she had passed that remark that I never eat more than one thing. So she was a guest, and so the writer thought that, अरे उसको क्या disappoint करना है अभी? So let me order whatever she wants. So he called for the waiter and asked if there was any. There was a salmon. Yes, a beautiful salmon had just come in. It was the first they had had. Now, in very big restaurants, the salmon is kept. There's an aquarium, and the salmon is kept in that fish tank. You can choose which one you want to be cooked, and they will have it cooked. So I ordered it for my guest. The waiter asked her if she would have something while it was being cooked. Now, for example, in Indian restaurants, when we go to have food, especially for during the lunchtime, what do? We order for some starters or some masala papad or something like that. So the waiter asked her, would you like to have something while your salmon is getting cooked? No, she answered, I never eat more than one thing. So this particular one sentence, she keeps on repeating time and again. But there is an irony here. Every time she repeats this particular sentence, she orders for something else. She orders one more dish. Unless you had a little caviar. I never mind caviar. So what is caviar? It is a dish which comprises of the eggs of a particular kind of fish. Very, very expensive. Okay, so it's very, very expensive, and it is not even a few grams of it runs in many, many dollars. So it is not something that usually is available in restaurants, unless the restaurant is which is visited by the really very filthy rich people. So they are pickled eggs, and they're eaten as a delicacy. They are served along with some sweet dish or just like that. Okay, so she ordered for a little caviar. I don't mind if you have caviar. I knew I could not afford caviar, but I could not very well tell her that. It will be rude to tell the guest, अरे तुम ये नहीं order करना मेरे से नहीं होगा बहुत expensive है. Can't tell that. For myself, I chose the cheapest dish on the menu, and that was a mutton chop. I think you are unwise to eat to eat meat, she said. I don't believe in overloading my stomach. Now, these are some of the sentences that bring out the irony of the in this particular story. I don't believe in overloading my stomach. The author, towards the end of the luncheon, you will find that the author had just one, uh, a little, that is the mutton chop, and he has some coffee. But whereas this particular lady, guest of his, finishes at least around 8 dishes one after the other. First the salmon, then a little caviar, which is again very, very expensive. Okay. She ate the caviar and she ate the salmon. She talked gaily of art and literature and music. She spoke cheerfully about art, literature, and music. But I wondered what the bill would come to. All the while, the writer was thinking about the bill, so that kept him tensed. He was hardly paying any attention to the conversation or what she was saying. When my mutton chop arrived, she took me quite seriously to task. I see you are in the habit of eating a heavy luncheon. I'm sure it's a mistake. Why don't you follow my example and eat one thing? अरे पहले से दो चीज ऑर्डर करके she had gulped it down. एक तो she had ordered for the salmon, finished the entire salmon, and then she ordered for caviar, that also she had finished, and she was passing a remark that she ordered only one thing for lunch. She only had one thing for lunch. Why don't you follow my example and eat just one thing? I couldn't possibly eat anything. I couldn't possibly eat anything more unless they had some of those giant asparagus. Now, asparagus, children, is a tall plant that belongs to the lily family. And again, it is very, 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 very expensive. I would be sorry to leave Paris without having some of them. Maybe it is something which is available more in Paris, and or a special variety of it is available in Paris. And so she says that she would be sorry to leave Paris without having some of them. My heart sank. Now the author was really getting disappointed. Okay. I had seen them in the shops and I knew that they were horribly expensive. My mouth had often watered at the sight of them. Mouth watering? That is, he wanted to have it, but he couldn't afford it. So he had just seen them, and the very sight of them, he admired them, but he never thought that he would have it at any particular point of time in life because he knew he would not be able to afford it. उसके औकात से या उसके पास जो पैसा था वो कभी उतना अफोर्ड नहीं कर पाएगा. I am not in the least hungry, my guest sighed. But if you insist, I don't mind having some asparagus. Now, अगर आप चाहते हो तो मैं थोड़ा asparagus order कर लेती हूँ. That is what she said. So she ordered for it. And now the author was all the way, as it is, the tension was mounting up. Aren't you going to have any? No, I never eat asparagus. So the author is lying here because अरे इसका बिल जो है बढ़ता ही जा रहा है. मैं ये जो खाने पर ऑर्डर कर रही हूँ उसका बिल चुकाने के लिए मेरे पास पैसा होगा या नहीं होगा. He had started wondering about that. So at this stage he has to lie saying that I never eat asparagus. Okay. So here you have some questions related to vocabulary, children. You have number of words where you can have antonyms of these words, antonyms opposite words. Brightly, dull, limited, unlimited. And there are lots of words where prefix is used. Prefixes, alphabets which you are going to alphabets which you are going to add before a particular word. And many times you get a new word and many times it is the opposite of a particular word. So antonyms or opposites can be formed by adding a prefix. Okay. So modest, immodest, im, ir, in, mis, non. These are some of the un. These are some of the prefixes that are commonly added. Ir, regular, irregular, okay, limited, unlimited, attractive, unattractive, practical, impractical, attentive, inattentive. These are some of the IN, IM, UN. They've been used in order to form antonyms. Okay. Now we can have some questions for the first question, that is the simple factual questions, and you can have named the following, like the cheapest dish that was there on the menu card, which was ordered by the author, that is the mutton chop. Then the food item that was not there on the menu card, which is the first dish that the lady ordered, okay, or the food item that was not on the menu card was salmon. Then the second dish that the lady had ordered, that was caviar. What are the topics that the lady guest spoke about? She spoke gaily about art, literature, and music. And what was the material, or what was a food item that she wanted to have before she left Paris? Giant asparagus. Okay. Why was the writer startled? Because uh, the writer knew that most of the food items at the menu card was mentioned in the menu card was very, very expensive, and he would not be able to afford any of these. Okay. Now there are a lot of words here, children, which are adverbs. Adverbs tell you more about verbs. It can be adverb of manner, time, or place. Most of the adverbs end with ly, so you can make a list of all those adverbs, like for example generously, early, seriously, gaily, possibly, etc. So let us go ahead, children. Menu means a list of dishes served. And how was this lady? Um, when you go to the beginning of this particular page, page number 152, we have a web diagram where you describe this particular lady. It's a continuation from page number 151. How was the lady? Lady was imposing. She was. She had a good memory. She had white, large teeth. She was very talkative. And you can also write that she was tactful, very manipulative, because she herself called up the author and invited herself for lunch. So, in at the beginning of the session, that is beginning of the when before we started off with the chapter, in the warming up session, we spoke about foible. Foible means strange habits or weaknesses that people have. Now, this particular lady guest of ours, you will find that she had this habit of, she was a foodie. She had the habit of, that is, she was very fond of eating, but not by spending herself, but by making others pay for the items that she wanted to eat. She took advantage of people. She tried to impress them, and she made them take her out on a luncheon. And she would order for all those dishes that were expensive and she wanted to eat. So here you have this lady who has this foible, that is a strange kind of weakness. But many times people who have this weakness, they are not aware of it. Okay. So maybe she was not very conscious, or then she was very shrewd, and she made the author take her out for luncheon and order that too at a very expensive restaurant at Paris, the Foyo, and she made him order all those things that she loved to eat. So when we come to this page number 150, end of page number 152, we realize that she had at first ordered for salmon, which was not there on the menu card. As the salmon was being cooked, she ordered for some caviar, that is the eggs of a particular kind of fish. Very, very expensive. It's a delicacy which only the very rich, few rich can afford. And there is this freshwater uh, there is a fish farming, pisciculture it's called, where you make an effort to breed a certain kind of fish, and then the sonography is done when the fish has got a lot of eggs in its belly, and then slowly they decide when almost one fish can give about 4 kilograms of caviar, and these are carefully packed and they are shipped to other countries of the world. So it's a delicacy which is very, very expensive. So she ordered for that. She finished the salmon, she finished the caviar, and she reprimanded, scolded the author for ordering only for a piece of mutton. And she said that would be too heavy on the stomach. And then, while the writer was slowly thinking of the bill and he kept on eating, do you think the writer would have enjoyed any the mutton chop that at such a restaurant? The quality of that mutton chop would have definitely been very good. The author wouldn't have tasted anything like that. But he could not enjoy that because all the while his uh, worry was about the bill that he would have to pay after at the end of the luncheon. Okay, we come to the end of this part, children here, and we'll continue the story in the second part. Thank you, children. Have a good day.